My name is Rebecca. My husband, Nicholas, lives in another place away from home for business. Initially, I planned to move in with him. However, at that time, my mother-in-law fell ill, and my father-in-law already needed care, so I decided to live with them. My relationship with my in-laws was quite good, and I had a positive outlook on living in my husband's parents' house. In reality, my days in my in-laws' home were peaceful, and I enjoyed my time with them. I regularly communicated with Nicholas, who lived apart, and our marital relationship was probably seen as good by those around us. However, the peace was suddenly shattered. The cause was a woman named Hillary. Hillary is Nicholas's sister, 6 years older than him. I heard that because of their age difference and differing personalities and lifestyles, they don't interact much in their childhood. Specifically, while Hillary enjoyed a sociable life outside, Nicholas preferred to spend time alone at home. I've also heard that when Hillary was asked to do something at home, she would secretly instruct Nicholas to do it. As a result, Nicholas seemed to have developed an aversion to Hillary's actions. As she grew up, Hillary's social life became increasingly flamboyant, and by the time she was in college, she was coming home late. The family, considering Nicholas's middle school education and lifestyle, asked her to refrain from returning home so late. However, Hillary rebelled, saying, "It's none of your business when I come home." The parents responded, "If you're going to act like that, you should leave and live on your own. You need to realize how much trouble you're causing everyone. Remember, you're not the head of our family," and asked her to leave. But Hillary didn't show any intention of finding a new place, and still came home too late, so after the curfew, the family changed the locks and locked her out. Despite it being the middle of the night, an angry Hillary caused a commotion outside the house, leading the neighbors to call the police. This series of events led to a rupture in the relationship between Hillary and her family. Knowing his background, the surprise when she suddenly appeared before us was immeasurable. Claiming ownership of the house, she entered without warning. She looked dazzling, as if she had just come from an event. As I tried to discern her intentions, I was reminded of her capricious nature and the past conflicts between her and her family. From the back of the corridor, I heard footsteps followed by my mother-in-law's voice. "Who on earth keeps ringing the intercom like this?" She wondered out loud as she appeared. Standing before her was Hillary. Upon seeing her mother, Hillary smiled sweetly. "I've decided to live here too. Taking care of Dad alone must be hard, right? I'll support you." It had already been 3 years since my father-in-law needed care, and my mother-in-law had been in poor health for a year. Yet we had received no communication from Hillary during this time. Her sudden appearance and offer to help made us suspicious. The suspicion was also felt by my mother-in-law, who asked Hillary, "Where have you been all this time? We needed help, but you didn't come. Why now?" In response, Hillary laughed loudly and said, "I don't really want to help with caregiving. Maybe I'll help if I feel like it." This statement seemed to revel the reason she was once driven out of the house. She was very self-centered and tended to think of things on her own convenience. It seemed she intended to stay in this home indefinitely, while indicating she had no intention of helping. No one in this house wanted her to stay indefinitely. "My answer is no," my mother-in-law stated clearly, but Hillary still wore a confident smile. She seemed to interpret things in her own way, thinking, "If I'm here, Mum will be freed from Rebecca and I'll make everyone happy." With this mindset, Hillary boldly entered the house. She walked up to me and rudely said, "You're like a parasite. At least make some tea," insulting me. Upon hearing those words, the atmosphere in the house instantly became tense. I could see my mother-in-law's face turning red. When my mother-in-law raised her voice, the room was enveloped in a momentary silence. "What are you saying? That is extremely rude." In her voice, I could hear not only anger but also disappointment and wariness towards Hillary. However, Hillary, unfazed by my mother-in-law's voice, provocatively declared, "I'll scold the bride who's only living in the house for the property. I'll manage this place as the household leader." Behind her words, I could sense a strong pride in her higher position within the house, as well as the disdainful attitude towards others. My mother-in-law and I were lost for words, unsure how to react. Still, considering the days ahead, we knew we had to confront her attitude in some way. Her behavior continued unchanged, demanding things from me and my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law, angered by her behavior, shouted, "What's gotten into you? Don't insult Rebecca!" However, Hillary merely laughed it off. It seemed she had noticed many modern appliances in this house and concluded that there must be money here. We had an inkling of her obvious desires, and as we observed her actions, we decided to figure out her plans and true intentions. Although my father-in-law is bedridden, his mind remains sharp. He's currently mastering computer programming on his own. I truly respect him for his determination. Inspired by his proactive attitude, my mother-in-law began to take an interest in design research. I feel that as long as they both pay attention to their health, they can continue to lead a lively life. However, I feared that their enthusiasm might wane with Hillary's interference. When Hillary went out, I contacted my husband, Nicholas, and explained the situation in detail. His response was clear. "Let's implement the plan we've been talking about." 2 months passed and there was a tense atmosphere in the house, but we were secretly taking precautions. Even after moving into our in-laws' house, Hillary, who returns home early in the morning and sleeps until late at night, would interject with, "You're nosy," just hearing us have a small conversation. Given her behavior, it was understandable why she'd been kicked out of the house in the past. Still, amidst this stifling daily life, we, as a family, were secretly preparing our next steps. One day, as I was concentrating on work at home, Hillary suddenly entered the room and confrontationally asked, "Hey, planning to stick around here forever?" Calmly, I replied, "What are you talking about?" She became furious and shouted, "You plan to take over this place, don't you? It's obvious you're after the money. Trying to worm your way into my parents' inheritance? Get out of this house!" I had anticipated such accusations, but I hadn't expected her to be so direct so soon. Nevertheless, I calmly responded and made a proposal. "If I've caused any inconvenience, I apologize. Please accept this hot spring trip voucher. I thought it might be a change of pace for you," I said, offering her an invitation to a hot spring trip. Upon hearing this, her surprised expression briefly changed to a smile as she gladly accepted, saying, "Well, that's fine then." The next day, she departed for the hot spring trip. It was fortunate that the hotel could book her on such short notice. I covered the cost of the trip, seeing it as a necessary expense to smoothly advance our plans. Once she left, we began preparing in earnest to move. We decided to sell the house and move while Hillary was away. Nicholas, who had been informed earlier, returned home and arranged for a moving company. That day, our family was bustling, with the house in an uproar. When we initiated the plan, Nicholas said, "Choosing a new house will be exciting. Let's find the best place, considering the tastes and preferences of my parents." I nodded in agreement, smiling. "Yes, starting a life in a new home is a fresh beginning. I hope we find a wonderful house to enjoy our future." Hillary's appearance had been sudden, but it became the catalyst for our family to start anew, filled with hope for our fresh beginning. When Hillary eventually returned from her trip, the house had changed completely. Silent and empty, there were no signs of furniture or traces of my in-laws. She seemed unable to comprehend what had happened, her face a mix of confusion and shock. At that moment, Nicholas stepped into the house. He had two intentions. One was to check the condition of the house, and the other was to mediate between Hillary and us, should there be any trouble. I followed closely behind him, observing Hillary's reactions intently. "What on earth happened? Where are Dad and Mom? And where have all the appliances that were here gone?" Hillary's voice quivered in both anger and surprise. Taking a deep breath, I replied calmly, "Those appliances were the ones I bought over time, so they've been moved to our new residence." My father-in-law had been unwell for the past 3 years and had stepped away from his long-standing job. When I initially moved in with them, their home had older appliances which they treasured and used. But my mother-in-law also worked too hard and fell ill, with no further means to earn income. When I learned of the situation, I used the money I made to gradually replace the older appliances with new ones. Within a year, I'd replace almost all of the appliances, making the house much more comfortable. "But what about the car? That's missing too." Impatience was evident in her voice. "The car was also purchased under my name, Consequently, it's been taken to our new home. Wasn't that car for this house? I bought it, so it's mine. Hillary's face reddened as she shot accusing glances at us. You're trying to take all the inheritance for yourselves. I had anticipated this kind of reaction and accusations from her, so I replied with words I had already prepared. That's not entirely true. I didn't want to disclose this to you, but I've been working at home and earning a salary. I've been helping with the household expenses with that income, I calmly explained. Her eyes widened even more. You've been working at home all this time? She asked, her voice trembling. Yes, that's my job. And while doing that job, I also help take care of your father. I spoke the truth. It seemed that Hillary was unaware of how much I had been contributing to the household, but through this encounter, she came to understand the truth. Her demeanor shifted slightly as she asked, So there's still some inheritance left, right? Her words clearly indicating her self-serving interests. It was then that Nicholas intervened. In reality, both our father and mother didn't have substantial assets to leave as a large inheritance. A significant portion was used up for medical bills, caregiving expenses, and daily living costs after our father fell ill. Hillary, taken aback by his protest. But I'm the eldest daughter. Shouldn't I have a right to some of the inheritance? Nicholas retorted with a weary smile. Well, I'm the eldest son. Traditionally, it's common for the eldest son to inherit, and above all, we've been supporting our parents. I think we have more of a right than someone who hasn't done anything. She looked lost as she murmured, I had no idea. We were both taken aback by her self-centered outlook and her tendencies to cast blame without verifying facts. It became clear that we needed to explain things further. Hillary repeatedly claimed that her savings were wasted on her parents. Her words were tinged with a deep anger and disappointment. However, her accusations lacked any substantial proof. To her, Nicholas and I were merely relatives. Perhaps she had chosen us as targets for her misplaced anger. After some reflection, she made a new proposition. Then you should repay me that money, she demanded. However, our response was swift. That's not possible. You should work and earn money for yourself. The discussion seemed to be coming to an end, but then Nicholas pulled out a document. In a short while, someone will be coming here. It seems they have something to discuss with you. Upon seeing his actions, Hillary showed an expression that seemed hopeful. However, her hopes were quickly dashed. What Nicholas held in his hands was a detailed background check on Hillary provided by a private detective agency. According to that, after leaving home, Hillary lived with an older man and later married him. The fact was a surprise to us all in the family. Why did she hide her marriage from the family? Behind it was the hidden fact that she had inappropriate relationships with multiple men, and the documents revealing those relationships were what Nicholas had brought. Furthermore, Nicholas had called Hillary's husband to the scene. Why is he here? No one in this house should have known about my marriage, Hillary exclaimed in surprise. On the other hand, her husband glared and said, You told me you had cut ties with your terrible parents, so why are you at your parents' house? The ally she had hoped for brought the exact opposite result. She was confronted with her own mistakes right there and then. It seems that when Hillary once sought refuge with her husband, she had told him lies about her parents financially exploiting her and being thrown out of the house. But when suspicions of her infidelity arose, she suddenly returned home. Nicholas revealed the truth, bringing her years of deception to light. In reality, the reason she lied might be due to her own insecurities and past traumas. However, how much her husband loved her is evident from the fact that he did not choose to divorce her. Hillary's husband put her in the car, bowed deeply to us, and left. His parents were waiting in the car, and there seemed to be an atmosphere of serious discussion. Actually, my husband's parents intended not only to reprimand Hillary for her actions, but also to consider supporting their future life and their children. After she lived at her husband's parents' house, under their watchful eye, I heard that she wasn't even allowed to go out on her own. At all. Perhaps in that environment, she might have a change of heart and start a new life. On our side, my husband and I decided to support our in-laws in their new life. The in-laws needed more physical assistance and began their new life in an elderly facility. In terms of expenses, my husband and I are helping out. Although the distance between us has grown, Every time we contact them, they update us on their daily lives and new experiences. My husband and I are enjoying our life and the new place, and in the future we dream of expanding our family and sharing the exciting news with them.